So that's me. My name's Jeremy Cherney, and I'm the founder, CEO, and president of Tobin Solutions. We're celebrating 25 years in business this year, and we provide IT services and cybersecurity services, and we do a lot with Microsoft 365. And there's just so much that comes with Microsoft 365. I'm really glad to be sharing it with you today. So along the way, there's going to be some learnings. Hopefully there'll be some new things. I know some of you have been to some of our webinars on Microsoft 365 before, so I'm sure there'll be some things you've heard before. And if you've heard them before, maybe take another listen. Maybe you'll hear it newly in a different way and see some new opportunity. Opportunities is the name of the game inside of Microsoft 365. We'll be talking more about that. If you've got questions along the way, feel free to use the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's a chat button to click. If you want to chat, remember everyone will see what you're chatting. It goes to everyone. If you got any questions along the way, and also at the end, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. Also, we always want to know how we're doing. One of Tobin's values is continuous improvement. And one of the best ways we can get continuous improvement is to get feedback on how these things are. So after the webinar, you'll get an email with a link to a survey and a link to be able to download the slide deck and a link to the video as well, as this is being recorded. Just a quick fun slide. Microsoft and 365, they've been around. This is like their 10-year anniversary in some cases. So they've got, they started their cloud services a long time ago. You can see how kind of the branding has changed over time. And boy, have they added a lot of new features and functions and making things easier to use with Microsoft 365 over the time. So, it's definitely stood the test of the time and improved over these last 10 years. And Microsoft has a huge roadmap. This is definitely the future of Microsoft, and probably a lot of it your future as well. A little bit more about what Microsoft 365 is. It's a monthly subscription service, fundamentally. They have different tiers of service with different offerings, and you can actually mix and match those tiers. So that's kind of a nice feature of this. If some people don't need a tier that's more expensive because it's got more capabilities for what they need, they can buy that tier. And if you've got somebody who uses less of the features and doesn't need all of those features of that tier, they can do a lesser tier. So it's nice to be able to get the right budget and right feature set for people. It's cloud service, meaning Microsoft is hosting and managing those applications and your data on their servers. They've got a 99% uptime guarantee with what's called a shared responsibility model that we'll be talking about here shortly. And where does Tobin help? We help you with security and support and migration and administration and development and integration, really all things Microsoft 365. If Microsoft 365 is a Swiss Army knife of tools to use, Tobin's a Swiss Army knife of support to help you use those tools effectively. So I want to point this out. This is a new slide for some of you who may not have seen this before. It's about what Microsoft and a lot of other cloud providers are calling the shared responsibility model. So when it comes to security, you're going to see that really, whether it's Microsoft or Google or almost any of the services you might be using in the cloud right now, we'd like to think that they're now in charge of this and they've got everything handled. And it really couldn't be further from the truth, and not even further from the truth, further from what they're actually telling us. So if you look at this chart that Microsoft put together, you can see that the light blue is what Microsoft's going to be responsible for. The dark blue is where customers are responsible for, and shared is where you're both responsible for. On the far right side is that on-premise model. That's, definitely a current model, but maybe an older model for some of you where you have your servers and you run everything in-house. You're responsible for 100% of that. And as you start to move things to the cloud in different ways, and for most people, Microsoft 365 is that far left-hand side of things. That is where you have software as a service. Microsoft takes on much greater responsibility for the infrastructure, for the network controls, for the operating systems that are happening in the cloud. But if you look, you're still responsible for your information and data. You're still responsible for managing your devices. You're still responsible for your accounts and identities. and you're still responsible for that fundamental identity and directory infrastructure. So there is a whole world for you to be responsible about. And that's where you can leverage someone like Tobin Solutions for support around that. But you want to get, this is not something that Microsoft is taking full responsibility for. You still have a lot of responsibility in there. So in those different tiers, Microsoft has a number of tiers. These 4 tiers are where most of our clients are fitting in right now. And if there's other tiers you can add on to these. There's other tiers that include other tiers and bundle more things and services together. But these are the typical ones. This Business Basic, where it gives you most of what most people want with Microsoft 365, not the full desktop applications. The Business Standard gives you everything in Business Basic plus the full desktop application. So if you're somebody that wants full desktop versions of Excel and PowerPoint and Word, this is a great place to be. Outlook. For some of you, you really just want the apps and you have a different system you're using for email. So if you don't need email, you can use Apps for Business, which is Microsoft's tier that has mostly Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and file storage and Teams and some of those things. They've also put a new tier together, which is great. They have incorporated some of their security bundles in place called Business Premium. That's $20 a month. And that includes everything that's in the standard, as well as some advanced security and mobile device management features. So they really do add a lot into these bundles for that incremental cost. And these are prices as of today. And one of the things people always have a consideration about when they move to cloud is, well, once you move there, what happens when they raise prices? They're a business, they're going to be raising prices. Microsoft really hasn't done like a broad price increase over the last 10 years. They've had certain new tiers and certainly had new offerings that are at different price points. They actually do have a price increase coming in March of 2022. So if you're somebody who's concerned about budgets and pricing, these are what the new prices are going to be. So if you're a basic user, it's going to increase from $5 to $6 a month per user. If you are a Microsoft 365 Business Premium, it's going to go from 20 to 22. And if you're using E1, E3, E5, those are the price increases where you've got. So there's some different options there. If you're on the Business Standard or Business Standard, there's no price increase right now. So, but again, this is something you want to know. And for some of you, this may be very significant, but it's more about just knowing that the price increase is coming if you're budgeting. So if you've got 10 users and you're at the Business Basic, expect to pay another $10 a month for Microsoft services. I want to invite you into this conversation. You know, when there's a webinar going on, a lot of times it's like we're on TV and you're just watching me on TV, and this really is more than that. So I really want you to get a lot of value from this webinar. And so as we go through the webinar, I'd like you to engage in a conversation and engage in a question. As you move closer to year's end, you know, standing there on January 1st, what do you want to say you've accomplished in 2021? And how ready do you want to declare yourself to be ready for 2022? And why I say that is a lot of times technology can influence that. There's opportunities to automate, improve your service delivery, help your team, increase your profits, and more. Maybe there's some business outcomes you want to cause and be fulfilled. So I'd like you to do is just take 30 seconds and just write down 2 or 3 things that you want to have accomplished by the end of 2021 and the beginning of having you really tee up 2022 for a successful year. Just write those down for yourself. We're not going to share them unless you want to share them, but just want to know, you know, have a couple things in mind that you're thinking about, because as you go through these, as we go through the rest of this webinar, what's likely is you're going to see some opportunities there. So just take 30 seconds. Should get some thinking music in place, but I don't have any. All right, close enough. So if you're already using Microsoft 365 or you're thinking about using Microsoft 365, Odds are high. Some of the main reasons you're using it are for Outlook. You know, you want to do your email, calendar, and contacts. And we'll touch on a little bit of that here, but that's not a, you know, we have different webinars specifically on those, deep dives into those. You know, you want to be using Microsoft Office for a lot of you. You want to be using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, things like that. Maybe a lot of you are starting to use Microsoft Teams, or thinking about it, using it in some way. And maybe even some of you are using Microsoft SharePoint to store documents up in the cloud and such. And again, we'll be touching on these. Those are really the top uses. We've got different webinars on those. We're not going to be doing a deep dive on that today, but we will show you some new things around that, as well as some broad things that apply to Microsoft 365 and in total, which is why we want this on your radar. First of all, full mobility. You know, there was a time when if you wanted to work on your computers and work on what you had at work, you had to be in the office working on your workstation. You had to be working off your desktop. Maybe you were remoting into your workstation from home. Once you move some certain things up to Microsoft 365, you have full remote access from anywhere. You have access from your phones, from your tablets, from your laptops. You don't have to set up any special VPNs or special networking. You have access to pretty much every Microsoft application in the cloud. And what a great way to enable remote users these days. You know, whether people are working in different parts of the country or the world, whether people are home because of COVID or something related to that, or maybe you're just doing a more distributed workforce, as we're looking to hire talent, which I know a lot of us, that's a big challenge, is getting the team together and finding the right people. You know, this opens, maybe you find somebody in a different state, a different city, a different country. And if they've got that technology behind them to communicate and collaborate and access to your systems, you might really expand your search to the world for finding those great team members. And that full mobility without even to put a lot of infrastructure in place is really critical to having that be successful. There's guest access built into Microsoft 365. So with our technology and with that ability to have this mobility and have it be everywhere, you have the ability to invite customers, partners, other people you work with, whatever you want to call that, into being able to see and use some level of your Microsoft 365 environment. You could be sharing documents with them. You could be sharing some of the services that are there, like Planner or Teams, and they can use that and integrate more tightly with you. There's a lot of security available around it, so it's you know, it's really set up for success. And they don't have to buy licenses. It's limited in some ways, so you want to know what those limitations are. But in that 80-20 rule, 80% of probably what you want to be able to share documents securely with your team and customers, or have them see some of your systems, you can do with the guest access. Someone's asking, do you need to convert everyone in your organization to 365, or can you have a mix? That'd be a little bit of a bigger conversation, but really it can be a mix. You know, there's certain things that make more sense just to have everyone be in 365 or not, like email, although there are some ways of transitioning that slowly. But other things, you can have a department using one aspect of Microsoft 365 and a different department using a traditional file server. So there's different ways of getting at it. It's not an all or nothing, which is nice. And it's nice also from a, hey, you know, I don't know if I want to commit to this yet, but I do want to pilot it. I want to try it with this department or with this particular application, or to solve this particular pain point. In some cases, it doesn't have to be rolled out to everybody, and that mix will be valuable for you. Behind Microsoft, you know, once you've got everything in 365, it's all connected behind the scenes. You don't have to do much to connect it, which is great when you want to search across your whole organization, when you want to look for valuable insights or business intelligence, and it just pretty much happens in the background. So there's not a lot you need to do, but you just want to know that once it's all in that place and you search for something, let's say you want to search for a document, it's going to look in your email. It's going to look in SharePoint. It's going to look in Teams. It's going to look in Planner. You know, it's going to look at all these different applications for those documents rather than you having to go into each one of those and do the search. Just a small example, but what a valuable search tool just to get at information. It's now included. You know, for Tobin Solutions, we're a security-first organization. Security is critical to what we do and what we do for our clients, especially as you move to the cloud. There's a lot of assumptions about security. And Microsoft does have something they call a secure score, which you can go in and look and see where you're at and what your security number is, and have the ability to take action and look at what you can do to move your number up to keep your things secure. We can assist with that. Odds are high if you go and look, you're going to see some numbers and some opportunities. In some cases, those opportunities are important. In some cases, they may not be as important. But again, you want to have it on your radar. You want to have it as something you're thinking through, and we can assist with that. This gets more into that shared responsibility model that Microsoft has. A lot of you are already using Outlook on the desktop, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But what you also want you to know is that Outlook is fully available via a web browser, or there's an actual Outlook application, not the default email app that came on your phone or device, tablet, but really a Microsoft specific Outlook application that has a number of Outlook specific features. And again, real handy for the mobility of it, really great for remote users, right? You know, maybe someone's at home and they really need to get into email and they just want to get on a web browser and do it. Or maybe they're already doing that with something like Gmail or some of the other services that are out here. All of Microsoft Office in one way or another is available via web browser, including your email, calendar, and contacts. This makes it real easy to get to. And it's nice back up some, somebody's Outlook, like any program, can get a little funky sometimes. If your Outlook is crashing or you got a problem, log in through the web browser. Assuming it's an issue with your application or your device, you can log in with a web browser and get access to everything. So you're never stuck. Office message encryption, right? Email by default was never designed with security in mind. And so one of the considerations we have around security is the ability to encrypt an email. If we're sending out sensitive information, contracts, credit card numbers, personally identifiable information like social security numbers and things like that, healthcare information. You may have already been the recipient of one of these emails from like your insurance agent or your bank, right? The email doesn't come to you as an email. It comes to you with a link to click to take you to another secure website where you go in and enter your password, and then you can see those secure emails. Office message encryption is included with certain aspects of Microsoft 365. So you're in your email and you click this encrypt option, and what they'll get is an email saying, hey, if you're Jonathan Hazel, you'll get Jonathan Hazel has sent you a protected message, and that's what they'll get in their email. And then they have to click to read the message. It'll take them to that other website. You can add this on to different subscriptions. It works with all email systems. It can be brandable, so you can take off this Office 365 logo and put your own company logo in there. So if you need to be able to send encrypted messages to people outside your organization, this is a great way to do it. It's all encrypted inside your organization automatically, so you don't need to do that. But when you're doing outside, you want to have that available. Microsoft OneNote. This is an app you get with your Microsoft 365 suite. It is a metaphor for it might be if you look on your shelf somewhere and you've got a binder of information with tabs in that binder, and in that binder you've got color-coded tabs, and each tab is for something else, and inside that, you flip open that tab and you've got documents and pictures and other materials, scanned photos, other things like that. That metaphor fits with like what Microsoft OneNote is. So you can create these notebooks or binders, and you can have these tabs. This is a great way to put your office manuals online, procedure manuals, things like that. It's really great for that. I use it for that. I use it for my own personal information, taking notes as I'm working through things. Like for me, when I'm meeting with my team and I have like a one-on-one with them, I bring up OneNote because I've got a tab for my team, and each tab has a page with a page for each person, and I just have a list of reminders and things I want to talk to them about. So when I have that meeting, I just bring up my OneNote, go to my team tab, and look at that. Different ways of doing that. That's how I do it, but it's a simple example, and it's really useful, and it's fully mobile. There's OneNote for your phone and tablet. So sometimes I'm sitting somewhere in line and I start thinking about something at work, want to remind myself to do something, I might go into OneNote and drop myself a little message. Microsoft SharePoint, some of you may already be using this for your file storage. You might have documents either in OneDrive or in SharePoint. If you're using Teams and storing documents, it's using SharePoint in the background, but it's so much more than document storage. So you can store documents, that's how a lot of you are using it, but it can also be, you can create what's called a team site, or what maybe back in the day we might have called an intranet, right? Where you can have an internal calendar for people to see. You can have documents for people to see. You can have a shared internal calendar, contact lists. Great way to be in communication with people, especially if you've got that remote workforce. You know, if you've got people who are not in the office and they're not seeing those, you know, they're not seeing the bulletin board you've got sitting by your water cooler. They're not, you know, they're not walking past your office when you walk in when they walk in the morning, because you're not working at the office anymore. But you want to have this communication. You want to expose what's happening in your company. You want to keep developing that culture. SharePoint's a great place to be able to do that. You can put photos up, you can put information, and again, fully mobile. So it's really great. It's not just a little web version of it. There's actually a SharePoint app they can read on their phone. They can read things. They can click into documents you're sharing with them. So really a great way to keep your culture and share information internally. I did mention you can share documents in SharePoint and OneDrive. Again, we're not going to do a deep dive on that. We have a whole other webinar on it. But again, as you're thinking about what you want to accomplish for 2021 and empowering your 2022, sometimes one of the projects is just to get your documents up in the cloud so you've got mobility everywhere for your remote workforce. So that could be something you want to do. We can show you how to do that, make that easy for you. And it does exist. It's secure. In some cases, it's also part of your security journey. Maybe you've been receiving requests from your bank and other business partners wanting to assess your security posture, and they're asking you questions about, are you encrypting your data? Well, you get some of that data up in SharePoint and OneDrive, you'll be able to check that box and say things are encrypted, because SharePoint and OneDrive has encryption at rest. So bigger conversation around security, but that could be one of the boxes you want to check for 2021 or 2022. Really great way to do this. If you're a Dropbox user and you're using that in a limited way, you know, OneDrive has Dropbox-like features where you can synchronize those libraries from SharePoint and OneDrive down to your workstation, work with them offline, work with them off your hard drive, and they get synced back up, just like OneDrive. Microsoft Teams. Maybe you're using that, maybe you're not. Maybe you were using Skype for Business and you got moved over to Microsoft Teams. Teams is part of all these Microsoft 365 tiers of service. It's this unified communication platform. You know, maybe right now you're texting with your team using your phone and you're just using your regular phone to SMS message back and forth. You can do all that inside of Teams. You have a Teams app on your phone. What's nice about that is it's secure. It all sits inside of your organization. And if you lose your phone, you don't lose all your messages, right? So there's a lot of nice features for using Microsoft Chat. So many more things you can do with Microsoft Teams. Besides those one-to-one chats, you can do group chats. You can do internal voice video calls. You can do meetings like this. You know, at some point we'll be transitioning to Teams for our webinars. Right now we've been using Zoom because it's right now that's our process is set up around Zoom, but at some point when we tackle that new process, we'll probably switch to Teams. But you can do your own internal video and voice calls. So as Tobin has moved to a mostly remote workforce, we do Teams all the time for our meetings. And it's really such a great way to stay connected. And if you're intentional about staying connected with it, it's really effective. It really is. I know some people will say there's nothing like being in person. And for some things, there is nothing like being in person. But there's a whole world of effectiveness one can put in to how they handle voice and video calls that can have it almost like being there. Be like being there. That's not a technology thing. That's a presentation skills and some other around that, but can be very valuable. And you can share files through Teams. It integrates with so many different applications. You can collaborate and again, work from any device. And we've got a whole Teams webinar on Teams, so we're not going to do too much of a dive on that. But if you haven't looked into it, it's almost like a platform into itself. It's a big product for Microsoft. You're going to see a lot of Microsoft Teams focused technology as people go into Teams, and that's where they spend their time during the day doing their work. One of the other things that Microsoft has is Microsoft 365 Business Voice. So it's a full cloud-based phone system. It has a lot of the advanced users and a lot of the basic features, a lot of advanced features and basic features that you would expect from a phone system. Voicemail, call transfer, auto attendance, menus, call queues, call recording, a lot of things like that in different ways. It snaps in with Microsoft Teams. So just like you can call somebody in Microsoft Teams inside your organization, like do a video call or a voice call, you could also now call people in the rest of the world who have a phone number. Like you could always invite people to Teams and do a voice video call, just like I invited you to my Zoom call today. But this actually lets you make a real phone call to a real voice number through Teams. So this could potentially be a substitute for the phone system you have, or an add-on to it in some way. You just use the Teams app on your phone. You can even include desktop phones. So if you don't want to use your Teams app and you want to have a regular desktop phone, you can do that. For $20 a month per user using your same Microsoft credentials. You get 3,000 minutes of domestic calling per user. You can use it for dial-in audio conferencing. You can port your main number over to Teams. Everyone can get their own individual numbers. So it's a really great option for phone systems. And it all snaps in with your security. No new IDs and passwords and multi-factor authentication is set up. It all works with what you've got. And it can be fully integrated to Teams and all this other technology I'm showing you. Okay, so that's something we haven't shown you before, and it's a pretty cool product. Microsoft Planner. There's some basic project management built into Microsoft Teams called Microsoft Planner. It's what they call task-based planning. And it works from the web browser. There's also apps for your phones and tablets. And what you do is you organize your tasks into what they call buckets. So you might think, okay, what's a task we're working on? We're going to redesign our website. So there might be a couple different buckets of tasks. There might be a bucket of designing the website. There might be a bucket of updating the website. There might be another bucket of integrating the website with your marketing system. And each one of those buckets might have different tasks associated with it. Those tasks can then be inside of Microsoft assigned to people. So you can assign who gets to do what the tasks are. You can define those out. You can attach documents to it. And then you have a dashboard where you can go in and look and see what tasks are done, what tasks aren't done. So it's some really great, powerful, yet deceptively simple task management without getting into a big project planning system. This isn't a substitute for Microsoft Project if you're somebody that needs the capabilities of that. But for a lot of the smaller projects you might be doing, this might be the perfect tool for you, and you probably already own it. And we have a whole webinar on Planner as well, but recommend you try that out. Microsoft Visio. Some of you may have used this before or seen that. Microsoft Visio started off as a desktop application that Microsoft had. It was something you could buy and still can buy to run on your desktop. And it lets you create flowcharts and diagrams to define structures and business processes and systems that you've got, right? We're all pretty familiar with flowcharts. This is a great tool for creating those. And you can always do it with the desktop version and print them or save them and put them in these binders or share them with people to view. Visio has a whole web component now too. So inside of like your SharePoint, you can put a Visio document in that you can create and share that with your team. So as you define your business process, this could be a really great opportunity for something you want to get done by the end of the year or to tee up next year, right? One of the best ways we can make ourselves be more successful is to really wrap our arms around some of those key business processes where we're dropping the ball, or maybe we're making some mistakes, where maybe there's some room for improvement. Maybe there's some quality issues. Maybe things are taking too long. This lets you really lay that process out and analyze the interconnections of the processes and look for those opportunities to provide training, to provide automation, to provide reference material. So one of the cool things you can do with this is you can set up like this workflow, and then you can have these items be clickable. So when you click on them, it links to a document, or it links to a spreadsheet, or it links to whatever, right? So it's kind of neat. These become like live interactive things. So you're bringing somebody up, someone new is being trained, you're onboarding somebody new. Wow, what are one of the biggest pain points in bringing somebody on board new is training them. What if you could say, look, you're going to be doing this process on how we do our accounts receivable collections, or how we pack and ship our product. Here's the steps laid out. Here's the documentation behind it. Here's the step-by-step checklist when you click on this box. It's great. There's a free tier that comes with 365. And then there's some advanced tiers, like a web plus for $5 a month and a desktop plus for $15 a month per user, that have additional features and integrations. And you'll probably want to know what those are, and we can have that conversation. But they can tie into like your accounting system, or they can tie into another database, or so many other features you can get inside of this. So Visio is a cool product, great opportunity for having a successful 2021 and kicking off 2022. So in addition, we can show you how to use this, and we can also help you look at those business processes. We can walk through those with you and say, okay, show us how you do your accounts receivable process. Show us how you do your shipping process. We can help you leverage this, help you create this document. We do it collaboratively. So you get your process documented, and now you can really go to work on, okay, what do we want to do to improve things, or communicate and train people on it. Microsoft Forms. Let me grab a quick sip of water here. Microsoft Forms. Also something you have included, and it is what you can create forms, you can create quizzes, and you create polls. And these forms can be used internally, and you can create these forms. So you can create a form to gather information. You could create a form that is a quiz, maybe after you do training, after you do your Visio diagram and you bring someone on board and you train them, you want to assess, are they getting the training? Are they understanding what's there? You could create a little quiz, a 5-question quiz or a 10-question quiz or whatever you want to have them, assess, are they getting what you want them to get? You can also take all that data and you can twist it. You get a spreadsheet with it. You can export it to Excel. If you're an Excel whiz, you can run reports on, the results of the quizzes and forms. You can see, what's been filled out. You can share these with customers. So you could use a form to gather information on a project. Hey, customer, you want to do this project? These are the 10 questions we ask. You could send them a link to a form. They could fill it out online. You've already got the data in your system. Another great thing is polls, right? You can use these not only to gather information and quiz people, you can gather data about anything. It can be a fun poll that you might use for something. It can be a serious poll to gather information. I met with a really well-regarded HR expert in town yesterday. We had a call and we were catching up on some things, and I was telling her about what Team Tobin does around surveying our teams about how our team is doing. We've got a number of surveys we use, but we use these technologies to lay out the polls and gather that information on how our team is doing. Are they getting what they need? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Are they getting the training? All of those kinds of things, right? It's so important to know how your team is doing these days. And, as we all know, one of the toughest things for any business right now is hiring. Finding the people with the right talent, finding the people that are going to stay here. And the worst is losing good people, right? And part of the reason we lose good people is we don't really know what matters to them. Or we're focused on the things that we think matter to them, but aren't really what matters to them. So what a great way to find out what matters to them, do a poll. And you can easily do that internally with Microsoft Forms, very easy to do. Microsoft To Do. So some of you might be using to-do lists inside of your Outlook. I talked about Planner before as that task-based project management, and those tasks become to-dos. Microsoft To-dos combines all of that. So you get your personal to-dos. So this can be your own personal task management, but you'll also see the to-dos listed here that you set up as a to-do inside of Outlook or as a to-do inside of Planner. So you can see all your to-dos in one place, and you can check them off when they're done, which is great. Nothing more satisfying in a to-do than to cross it off. I think the app even does like a bell to ring the bell when you mark something off. So that's great satisfaction of knowing you're getting things done. But the other thing it has is kind of this cool feature. It's got this My Day feature, and it kind of refreshes each day. So in the morning, let's say you're kind of one of those people, like, how do you manage your to-do lists? Everyone's got different strategies, and there's a zillion books on how to manage your to-dos. Some people are very calendar focused. Some people say, I just need my 5 to-do items today, and I'll manage getting them done, but I just want to know what my 5 are. So in that world, like Microsoft To Do has something called My Day, where you open it up and it's a blank page, and then you can add some additional to-do items to it easily, or you can also see those to-do items from Planner or emails where you've marked them as a to-do, and you say, these are the ones I'm going to work on today. And that captures that My Day view, and you can get those 3, 4, 5, 10 things, 20 things if you're really going to try and knock it out of the park today, whatever that is, and do that. So it's a really great way, and it's fully mobile. So there's a desktop version, and there's a web version, and there's also a phone version. So when you got your phone, you can see this everywhere. You can add to your to-do. So really powerful. Whiteboard. We're all familiar with a traditional whiteboard, right? We might have a conference room set up where we've got the big whiteboard where we're putting up sticky notes, we're writing things down, inviting people to come up to the whiteboard, and they'll put their information up on there. We use them in meetings all the time to collaborate and capture information. Microsoft has a digital whiteboard. It's evolving, it's getting more powerful. They call it a collaborative canvas, right? And you can include these in your meetings. So if you wanted to, you could put up a whiteboard inside of your Zoom meeting or separately where people can go, and you can all see the whiteboard at the same time, and it updates in real time as people go up and they put on their virtual sticky notes or they put up their virtual comments, right? Or you can go up and circle things that other people commented on. So it really works like a whiteboard, and it's cool, and comes with what you've got. So another great way of, how do we collaborate? How do we work remotely? How do I incorporate this person that's now working from, Idaho, and they're now on our team, and we want them to be part of the team? You've got to start giving some of these tools to them to enable that team participation, that team collaboration. So they've got the tools they need to collaborate and feel connected and part of your overall team. So this is another tool inside of that. When you're done, you can save this, you can print it, you can copy and paste things out of it and turn them into to-dos. A lot of cool things you can do with that. Microsoft Lists is a really cool product. I guarantee some of you have a way that this can be used, and this could be absolutely one of the most perfect things that are going to fit on your empowering your 2021 success and getting 2022 successful. You've all have these lists. You've all got these spreadsheets. You've all got whatever, these tabular information. And it probably works pretty good the way it is, but it's not necessarily mobile. It's not necessarily automated. There's a lot of room for people to, key in the wrong information. With your list, it's not easy to add rows. People might mess with the spreadsheet and they lock it up, or the spreadsheet gets corrupt, all kinds of things. With Microsoft Lists, it'll actually allow you to create these very powerful lists of events and issues and assets and projects, and whatever you've got a list of, you can put it inside a list. If it's something, you can mark it down as a list with other little things. Got project number 1, project number 2, project number 3, due dates, status, is it on track, off track, red, green, yellow, Who's got the ball next? What's the priority of this project? All those little things you tack on can all be those additional columns you have in your list. And now it's completely mobile. You don't have to worry about spreadsheets or using Excel or using an old version of Microsoft Access for something, which nothing wrong with Access. Microsoft still supports it, but it's hard to make Microsoft Access mobile. This takes that database, makes it fully mobile. It's great. You can see who's doing what. You can create your different lists. So they can go into Microsoft Lists. They can click each different list that is available to them and go in and work with it. There's templates available for Microsoft Lists. You can get started right away with things. I recommend you check this out, play with it. Even like a company directory could be a really nice list, right? How do you get your company directory out to people right now? How do they get people's name, phone number, email, cell phone number, extension, things like that? You could simply have a Microsoft list available for that and update it as people come and go. And then it's always up to date. So very cool product. Definitely could be a way of enabling your 2021 and 2022. A lot of stuff coming at you, right? There's a lot of features here. Again, don't get too wrapped up in how you're going to use these features. It's more just like, hey, Jeremy's showing me these things. I might have a few more questions on these. You really want, this is more about getting the juices flowing and not knowing necessarily how to do it, but knowing that it exists, that maybe there might be a possibility of leveraging this for something in the future. Another one of these great places that might be leveraged in the future is Microsoft Power BI. You've probably starting to see these dashboards show up in other business applications you use, where you log in and the first thing you see is a dashboard with graphs and critical information, things you want at your fingertips. Maybe you click on the graph and you're able to drill into a table and get some more detailed information. Microsoft has Power BI. Power BI is where you can create those dashboards. And those dashboards you can see in your desktop version. You can see them in the web. You can see them from a phone. You can share them with customers. I showed you SharePoint before in that intranet. You could share progress in that intranet using Power BI. And behind all of this data can be lots of different sources. It can be spreadsheets. It can be different databases. It can be different applications you use that you can bring data in. So it's a great way to centralize information from different systems and have different pods with data that matches each one of those different systems. Really powerful. There's a free tier. There's a basic tier and a premium tier that all have different costs. You can mix and match depending on what you're really trying to do. But man, oh man, what a great way to take the data that's in the system, get it to people that they need, who need it, in a form they need it. And what a way to make it easy. You know, think about the process you've got now. How many of you have like a spreadsheet that's a multi-tabbed, big, giant spreadsheet, and you look at one line on the spreadsheet as the business owner or as the team manager or whatever that is? That one line on the spreadsheet can be put into Power BI. So you can easily see it from anywhere. You can see it in real time because the data can get updated multiple times a day automatically. It gives you a place to make decisions, to take action. You know, if you're saying in this Power BI chart that some value should be averaging 10 and it's averaging 15, and that's a good thing, hey, decision point. I can go celebrate and congratulate my team today. If you're seeing it's supposed to be 10 and it's at 5, hey, you can get curious. What's going on here? Helps you make decisions, helps you get into action. When you can quickly see that, including the trends, not just today's information, but seeing the trend over time automatically. Is the trend going the way you want it to go? Is it a trend you want to see going up? Trend you want to see staying flat, or a trend you want to see going down? It depends what you want to see, but knowing that trend, again, helps you make decisions. Powerful, powerful tool. Delve is, it's such a funky application. I don't know who uses it. I use it periodically. You know, if you think about Microsoft 365, and you think about the data you use, right? What is the data you're using? For me, most of the time, I want to go find a spreadsheet somebody's working on, or a document somebody's working on, or a PDF that someone attached to an email, or maybe it's a document I'm working on, or maybe it's a document one of my direct reports is working on, and we use it every week in our one-on-one meeting. Delve is what they call a document-centric view. So remember I showed you Microsoft Graph before and how it pulls all that data in the background? Using Graph, Delve pulls all those documents and puts them in a list, so it's really easy to find them. So you can easily see what your team is working on. You can find those attachments that people have in emails. You can find your documents in one central place. It grabs them all. So if you haven't looked at it, I invite you to take a look at it. It honors all the security. So it's not going to give you somebody access to something they don't have access to, but it is smart. Like Delve using Graph and behind, it knows who I communicate most of the time with. It knows who like my direct reports are. It knows who are the people I'm constantly emailing, and it makes their documents show higher up on my list in Delve versus the document that I might have access to that somebody else is working on, but it's not somebody I typically operate with. So it's, again, it's smart, tries to bring that. And if there's a document you're always going into, you can flag it as a favorite. So it's really easy to go to. I always want to go in and see that weekly budget. You open up Delve, there's a link right there to the weekly budget, and it's always current. So Delve is very cool. Something else people don't always think about with Microsoft 365, and this gets a little geeky here, but Microsoft also has something that really Microsoft 365 is built on, and something they make available to other people, which is called Microsoft Azure. And that's Microsoft's cloud hosting for everything we've talked about so far. And there's so many other services that Microsoft Azure makes available to you. So if you have a traditional file server on premise, some people are asking us, hey, how do we move that server to the cloud? Or how do we move workloads from that server? We've got a database on that server. We want to get it off that server that is in our office, and we want to get it up in the cloud. Azure might be a place to put that. We can help you get there. So you can move full servers. You can move what we call workloads, like databases or websites or other services up to Microsoft Azure. And again, it brings new opportunities for business continuity and disaster recovery. Now that that's up there, right? You know, you might have your on-premise server and you got backup and things like that. But, you know, some of us maybe had some power outages with some storms a couple of months ago. Or if you were in Texas earlier in the year when they had all those ice storms, right? And people were losing power like crazy. Well, if you had your systems up in the cloud, you might have been saved, had your things available to you that wouldn't have been available otherwise. So it opens up new possibilities. And that's really a big part of this. And in some cases, it can reduce costs for you, or make items that you'd like to have available. Like maybe you like the idea of your server, but your office is not tornado proof. But you might want to put it in one of Microsoft's data centers where, you know, it's more tornado proof, right? They've got their building designed in such a way to withstand tornadoes and hurricanes and things like that. So there's a whole world around this, but if you've got some things in-house, maybe it's a legacy application, a lot of ways to look at this, but this is a great conversation to have. This could also be on your to-do list for 2021 or 2022 is how do we reduce our risk or balance our risk? How do we increase that mobility? Azure can be a great place for that. Microsoft Stream. You're all familiar with YouTube, right? You know, that video service that Google has, and Microsoft and Google makes their video, you know, you can make a YouTube video and make it public for people to see. Some people are using YouTube for some of their business things, and if it's a public thing, totally makes sense. What an easy place to put it. But some people are trying to use it for private business things, private trainings, things like that. Maybe you've got other videos that are part of your, maybe they're videos you've downloaded that are trainings particular to your organization, and they don't need to be up in YouTube or are not available in YouTube. Microsoft Stream is like your internal secure YouTube channel. So you can put up videos, you can share them, you can group them. You can watch them from phones and tablets. You can even download them to a phone for offline viewing. So what an enormous opportunity. We all have a pocket video studio in our phones. It's incredible. It's an enormous opportunity. You can literally use the camera on your computer, use the camera on your phone, and make a video of you welcoming your team. You can make a video of you of how do you do a specific process in your accounting system. You can make a video of here's how we greet people. You know, whatever these videos are, you can put them there, make them part of your onboarding, make them part of your training. Not show somebody the same thing you've shown them 10 times. Next time, record your screen. We can show you how to do, record your screen, record that process. Here's how you enter an invoice. Here's how you enter a work order. Here's how you fulfill on that. Here's how you maintain the truck. Here's how you maintain the forklift. You could literally have your maintenance engineer make a video with their phone. May not be perfect, may not be flawless, but can be good enough. Perfect is the enemy of good enough when it comes to this. You can always make the videos better, but start to capture them. Get that up on Stream and start sharing it with your team. Don't lose that institutional knowledge. It helps with automation. It helps with process. And you've got it all built in for free. Please start using it. It's valuable. We're starting to get a few more slides here on some things. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but again, the idea is there's so many opportunities you have in Microsoft 365 to automate and to improve what you've got in the world of your applications and systems and processes. I was listening to an economist speak the other day, and he's a very well-regarded economist. And I'm not going to say necessarily whether he's right or wrong. I'm just looking at what he says and how it's showing up in the real world. He's talking about the problems of hiring and retaining people. He's talking about finding the right talent. His words of wisdom, he said, this is not getting any better anytime soon. This could persist for years, depending on what happens. And we don't want to lose those good people. And sometimes we do. Or maybe we've got good people, we're not really losing them, but we need more of them because of the way our systems and processes are designed. They're people intensive. So what are some ways you can automate? That was what the economist said. He had 3 words of wisdom: automate, automate, automate. So where you can, showing you a lot of tools you can use these. Sometimes it's creating a little application for something. Power Apps is a way to do that. Maybe you just have a process that's people intensive, and if you had a little app that did these couple little things, maybe you can do what you've got given your current staffing level. Maybe if somebody leaves, which is unfortunate, if you don't want them to leave, you can backfill a little easier. You can bring people on that maybe don't have quite as much skill in a particular area, because now you've created a framework for automation where now the skill level required to do that job is a little less. And you can bring them in to run that system you've set up now because you're using the tools I'm showing you. Or maybe you can offset your budget, right? Maybe you can bring someone in at a little lower salary because the job requirement's a little lower because you've made it automated, and you can shift some of those dollars you were investing in those people into somebody who is a higher level person who has skills you can't automate, or have skills that are doing things that only you can do and you're trying to free up your time. So automate, automate, automate. You got Microsoft Power Apps to do that. It lets you create apps. And they call it codeless apps, meaning it's kind of drag and drop, and it's pretty easy to create these basic apps. And you can see them, you can see in the picture. People can see them on phones or tablets. So if you've got somebody that's remote, somebody working out in the warehouse, they can take that app, open up their phone, log in with their 365 credentials, see that app and work with it. Power Apps is another place you can do that. Power Apps is what connects different applications. So maybe you've got a process right now that somebody emails you a work order as a PDF, and then you take that work order and then you put it in a folder, and then you email the service delivery person that there's a new work order out here. Simple example, right? Probably something a lot of us do in some way or another. Couple of different steps in there, but pretty easy to automate with Power Automate. You can have Power Automate watch an email box for something, take the attachment, automatically store the attachment somewhere, and then notify somebody that that attachment is now available and ready for them to do what they do. Simple process, can speed things up, right? If that person's not right, what happens right now? If that person is getting that email and they're on vacation, maybe they get the email the next day or when they're back. What if they're at lunch, right? We do let people take lunch these days, right? Still, especially important in retaining people is letting them have a little free time during the day. This process will still run while they're at lunch. If a work order comes in while they're, out having a snack or getting a walk-in or whatever they're doing, it'll still happen. So that automation is critical. Automate, automate, automate. Let's see. Social media. People are using social media whether you want them to or not. They might even be talking about your business whether you want them to or not. There's some really nice ways of using social media inside your office. So rather than using like a private Facebook group and inviting people using their personal Facebook addresses and things like that, for example, you can use Yammer to create your own internal Facebook. It works very similarly. People can post photos, they can comment on things, they can share and like and do all of that. So it's great for events. It's great for team morale, but you can use it for other things too. You can set up different, like on Facebook, you can have different pages. Inside of Yammer, you can have different channels. So we have like a channel where we share updates on what our clients are up to. Sometimes we run into them somewhere, or we see their logo on a bus or somewhere, might take a picture. We'll share it to Yammer and show people what you're up to. So you can use it however you want, but it's built in, uses their ID and password. It doesn't leave the company if they leave. You've got all that information. So a great way to stay engaged with people as you think about team engagement as well, retaining your team. We have Microsoft Bookings. We've got 2 more slides here. So we're gonna have very little time for Q&A. I just wanna put that out there. I'll still stick around for a couple minutes if you have any burning questions. Otherwise, we can email them. Microsoft Bookings. What a pain it is to coordinate an appointment with somebody, right? You're like, hey, I wanna meet with this new client, or I wanna meet with this partner. And you spend 5 emails going back and forth, or 3 phone calls trying to figure out when you're actually gonna meet with somebody. Or when is your client gonna set up that yearly meeting with you, or that weekly appointment that somebody's coming in? How do they do that? You can use Microsoft Bookings to create a link attached to your calendar where they'll only see free time. They won't see what's on your calendar, and they'll only see the free time that you make available. So if you want to say, hey, every day between 2 and 4, customers can book appointments with me using my bookings link, give them the link. They'll put themselves on your calendar. What a time saver. It's really great. So I recommend you using Bookings. Microsoft Viva is something new that Microsoft has, newer. It's coming out and rolling out. We're not even using it yet, but I want to make you aware that it's something that's being added to these subscriptions. They call it an employee experience platform, broken down into Viva connections, insights, topics, and learnings. And it's all about the team. It's all about working together, fostering culture where people and teams are empowered to be their best from anywhere, mostly via Teams. That's what Microsoft's marketing says around it. So there are some things coming around that might be useful for you. How can Tobin help? We talked about that shared responsibilities being fulfilled. We can help with that. We're your Swiss Army knife when it comes to that. We can help with strategy and planning. your security, systems and admin, data and application migration, training, helping you with those business processes, and then helping you integrate and develop those processes in some way. So you can really leverage things, go beyond what 365 does in terms of email and Microsoft Office and Teams out of the box, or even SharePoint out of the box. Look at these other things I've done. Look at that list you created, about 2 or 3 things you want to get done this year and next year, and let us know if we can assist with any of that. So I'll be around for a couple more minutes here. If you got any other Q&A, let us know. Again, when you get that survey, your feedback is so valuable to us. So please complete that survey. Let us know how we're doing. If you want us to speak to your team about this or